What's up, guys? It is week 92. Let me just say a couple things right off the bat. Last week, talking about Rasputin in World War II. Rasputin died in like 1916. I don't know what the hell. We just went down a rabbit hole of inaccurate information. So, yeah. Regardless, he died before World War II. Way, way before World War II. He was alive during World War One. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to say on that matter. But okay, let's hop into. Oh no, we're not going to go right into the reviews. I wanted to mention this isn't a review. I just wanted to mention because everybody and their brothers mentioned it on Facebook. Abducted in Plain Sight. Yes, it's on Netflix. It's a documentary, a true crime documentary, and literally everybody's just like, "What? What? This is ridiculous," and then posting memes, and that's pretty much all you can say. It is so bizarre and so just how easily people can be taken advantage of that otherwise seem fairly normal, but obviously are just kind of so naive. And back in the day, how easy it was to manipulate people, and nowadays even too. It's just never underestimate how naive the human race can possibly be. But Abducted in Plain Sight, pretty disturbing, pretty aggravating, but all around worth watching. Just as, at least as a lesson. The first movie I'm going to review is from Severin Films, and it is from Sergio Martino. No strangers to the Giallo, and this one is one of his most unique. All Colors of the Dark. This is a Severin Films release, like I said. Yeah. After all this time, believe it or not, I had actually never seen All Colors of the Dark. I had the old Shriek Show DVD. I even imported the Shameless Blu-ray, and I'm glad I waited till Severin released it because Severin usually does a great job, and this is no exception here. They did a good job. This one stars Edwidge Fenech, Susan Scott, that's her Americanized name, Ivan Rasimov, and George Hilton. So it's got a lot of familiar faces to fans of the Giallo. And this one, it's kind of strange. It's not your straightforward Giallo. In fact, the first like 2/3 of the movie, there's no death in the movie, and it's strange. It's kind of like gaslighting. This woman, this Ivan Rossimo, is following her around and scaring her, and no one really believes her. She had some traumatic events happen to her in the past. In the opening, you kind of realize through this dream sequence what it shows some things that are obviously to come, and some things that are subconscious, and some things that happen to her. And it's kind of a crazy dream, really weird and bizarre. And you can tell with the soft lighting that it's a dream. And that plays into the ending as well. There's kind of a dream sequence later that has some supernatural elements to it. Maybe some precognitive stuff going on, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. Another thing that makes this Giallo more interesting, besides the plot, basically, like I said, is Edwidge Fenech has some trouble in a relationship because she's starting to kind of lose her grasp on reality, or she seems to be having a nervous breakdown. She has like a childlike innocence about her in a lot of ways that her sister says she has. Played by Susan Scott. They make a great pair of siblings. They look a lot alike to me. So, she starts to lose it. She starts to have this guy follow around, and you're not really sure if it's in her head or what's going on. She starts to get involved with these black magic rituals and this strange cult, which is a very nice aspect to a Giallo that's not usually in there. So it's got that satanic panic element going on too, which is pretty cool. And there's got some weird rituals and whatnot. It's definitely a movie that plays with reality and dreams and surreal stuff and human psyche, as a lot of these do. So there's nothing different about that. I like what unfolded. The whole movie is like it has a deceptive touch to it, like the dreams and who's really who and stuff like that. That's a nice touch. And there's some inventive things here. At one point in the foreground, we see Edwidge Fenech is actually running in this in her hotel, her apartment from Ivan Rasimov, and he has like this big, I think it's a meat cleaver, and he goes to cut at her while she's running, and in the foreground we see like the hatchet land into the wall, and she just barely misses. In the background there's a light, and he cut the like wire in the foreground, so the background the light goes off simultaneously. I don't know why. It doesn't sound anything amazing, but the way it's done is pretty cool. And I said like this, it takes place a lot in an apartment complex of her being chased, and some of the dream sequences that she has. Well, one of them has this big like cool staircase, and there's an elevator in the middle, and that plays into a lot of it. And they do a lot of good suspense scenes with that all around. On the disc there's an alternative alternative American cut, which is cool. And there's a great commentary with Kat Ellinger, who's one of the best at doing these things. She wrote a book on Sergio Martino, so she gives Sergio the love he deserves. Sergio is definitely one of those like second tier Italian directors that is just barely not like A-list, because he's competing with like Mario Bava and Lucio Fulci and Dario Argento, but he's almost there. And I think he's one of the most underrated directors, because he did so many different movies, and he was very much like a Fulci where he could do it all and do different things. But he got some recognition, but not all the recognition he deserved. But All the Colors of the Dark, like I said, has its moments, and at the end, some of the setups and payoffs on the kills are pretty good. They're not extremely graphic kills or anything like that, but the payoffs and the setups are pretty neat. There's, of course, some nudity and a little bit of sleaze in a classy kind of giallo-style way. And the score's great, too. It has like a La La Lullaby thing by Bruno Nicolai. And I like that score. It plays into, what happened to her in the car accident and her childlike innocence, too. It's like a lullaby. It's nice. There's a written review over at the Screaming Toilet website if you want to check it out. And as far as the other features are concerned, there's an interview with director Sergio Martino, an interview with writer Ernesto Gastaldi, who's done tons of these movies. He's one of the, I guess, most prolific Italian giallo writers. And I can't think who is it on here. I'm gonna cheat a little bit, guys. Sorry. There is a interview with George Hilton, and that's pretty cool as well. It's nice to see some of these people still alive and still working, and not working but necessarily giving their last, their thoughts on these movies, because they're not going to be around forever, as we all know. But All Colors of the Dark is a solid giallo and a nice release from Severin for sure, and it's a little bit different, a little bit more unique than some of the other ones.
Drink this, and you will be free.
Tutti i colori del buio fu un film che nacque sulla scia di alcuni miei film precedenti che avevano avuto successo, come Lo strano vizio della signora Ward e La coda dello scorpione.
Oggi io l'avrei fatto diversamente. Io quando mi vedo lì come attore, madonna, dico, non è possibile.
Che mi dice bello quel film sul paranormale, ma non è un film sul paranormale, era un film contro il paranormale. No?
He had no illusions to be in any sort of auteur.
O power of evil, she offers herself. Free her from fear.
Okay, guys, the next one is also from Severin Films, and as I did Mondo, Bizarro Mondo, Freudo last week, I have Ecco and The Forbidden. Yeah, these are two more Mondo films, one American and one Italian, or it has more Italian things to it. I'm not sure if it exactly is 100% Italian, but these Mondo films, like I said, a lot of them aren't my thing. I like Mondo Cani, and that's about it. But we have here Ecco, which is the superior of the two, probably because it's narrated by George Sanders, who was in Psychomania for all you horror fans out there, and shortly after that killed himself, unfortunately. And it has music by Riz Ortolani, so it adds this layer of, at least artistic merit to it, and a little bit more... I don't know how to put it, but it just seems like a better film. It's shot better. It has more interesting narration. It has more interesting things about the world. Those Mondo's movies, they show a bunch of different weird things around the world. Some kind of shocking, just to catch the audience's attention. But there's some really cool things in here, like showing this monk monastery where they have to kind of get up there in an extreme way, and also kind of some acrobatic stunts, which I enjoyed seeing. This hops around the world and does all different, and shows all different things with a beautiful score. That's really all I can give on that, because it's not really something that I really care for all that much, but it is definitely the stronger of the two, and it has a beautiful score, like I said. If you like the Mondo movies, this one is actually probably the best of the four, to be honest, and I would recommend kind of giving it a spin. But if you don't like them, or, stick with Mondo County, at least check that one out. The Forbidden, which is going to interest some people because it was pretty much lost. It's American produced, and this one, The Forbidden, it kind of plays on the fact that it's more so for, like, forbidden loves, forbidden like sexual delinquencies and stuff like that. Is there any non-forbidden sexual delinquencies? I guess that's like a double thing there, an oxymoron. I guess I don't know, but not oxymoron, but a double overkill. I guess I'll say. But yeah, this one, and they're weird. It's almost like these fake storylines are made, or they're just. It's very poorly cobbled together. It's very cheap, very dirt cheap. It's almost like they had some scenes from other movies and cobbled them together and put some narration to make a couple different vignettes that are really just kind of ineffective to me and outdated. But for the time, they might have been something important, and for people that are interested in this stuff, it's definitely worth checking out because it was a lost movie. Myself, I don't really particularly care for it, but they have been remastered and they're gonna look as good as they're ever gonna look. But if this definitely is something you're interested in, then check it out. For me, it's not really again something that I would particularly revisit. So that is Ecco and the Forbidden.
Kane came out and was a very big hit, and it spawned in the United States this whole wave of Mondo films.
And as you can see, most of the women performing in this have a certain Freudian undertone to them.
I can only give it love until the sun goes down.
Remember, he was very fat, so seeing somebody else screwing a girl was very frustrating for him.
We talked to the artist and asked him just how he got into this unusual type of artwork.
Okay, the next one is from Arrow Video, and you know what? This is a movie I had never heard about, actually, until I watched The Fifth Chord, which is the same director. This is The Possessed. This is an interesting Italian movie, and definitely one of those ones that was definitely a branch between mystery movies and old school movies into giallo movies, if that makes sense. Kind of like, I don't want to say Black Lace because that feels more just like a straight up giallo, but it's definitely a step here. It's a black and white movie. It looks gorgeous, to be honest. Like I said, it's by the director of The Fifth Chord, and he's obviously got an eye, or he picks people who have an eye because his movies look spectacular, and this one's no different. This follows the story of a writer, very giallo right there, who goes to this small kind of seaside community to write a book, is what he tells everyone, but he's actually obsessed with this woman who he used to see last year or a couple years ago, and he wants to come back and see her again. And he's more interested in finding her than anything else. What he finds out is she has died under mysterious circumstances. Some people are saying it's suicide, but everybody knows that there was definitely something weird going on. He's staying at this hotel where basically the whole family kind of runs it, and they're definitely involved with this girl's disappearance, or this girl's weird end. There's a father, a son who's just newly married, and a daughter. And I don't want to spoil exactly how these people are involved, but it's the mystery of finding it out, which is so cool. And it's not told straightforward. There's some weird, surreal moments and some flashes that happen to the character. Some, again, like premonition things going on where you don't understand. And these premonitions actually, did they happen? Did they not happen? Are they how it actually unfolded or not? And it is a mystery movie, but it plays by quick. It's narrated. I chose to watch it in English. It's not exactly dubbed the best, but it flows really well. And like I said, the way it's filmed, it looks actually gorgeous because it has all these like seaside landscape, and has this cold feeling to it. And it's an interesting kind of dirty backstory, what actually happened, without spoiling too much. And the acting is top-notch in there, especially by the woman who plays the daughter. I thought that her performance was really amazing, and she has this haunted, beautiful look about her. The whole movie could be described as something haunted and beautiful. That would be a very good way to describe the movie, to be honest. There's no real complaints I can say about the movie. I think it was solid. I think it was a great mystery. I think that it was exactly what you would want, and it goes a little bit further. It's not a gratuitous movie or anything like that in terms of violence. The subject matter is a little kind of disturbing and crazy and different, and I like that. I mean, it's not necessarily different, but it's a little bit something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But I would really recommend seeing this movie if you can. Like Arrow put it out, and so it's pretty easily accessible. Tim Lucas does a commentary, and you guys know Tim Lucas knows his stuff, so that's really nice to see. There's an interview with Gianni De Rossi on here, famous special effects artist who worked on stuff like Zombie and tons, Cannibal Holocaust. So it's kind of weird because there's not that many really special effects in the movie. It's just one shot that looks pretty good, but it's only one shot. But it's a rare interview with him, and there's some other interviews on here as well. A close family friend of the director and who's friends with the director and his brother who produced a lot of these movies. Their names are Mario and Luigi, which is kind of funny to me. I know, stupid American humor, but regardless, the movie looks great, and it's definitely worth checking out. And I don't think many people have seen this one because it doesn't really fit under, I've never really heard of it, which I know a lot of people probably have heard of it and really enjoy it, but it looks damn good, and I was impressed with it. I'm just surprised that I had not heard many people talk about this one. There's also a video appreciation on here by an expert as well. But good movie, good release, and well worth checking out. I was surprised at how this story unfolded, how it mixed the surreal aspects, kind of like All Colors of the Dark, but different, into some of the other real things, and they play into it like it could happen too, because the lead gets sick, so he's at the disadvantage of some people, and he's also starting to kind of hallucinate, and you don't know exactly how things are going to unfold, but it's cool.
I didn't ask Emma about Tilda because I didn't want her to know why I had come back.
It was her fault. I was the one who...
Something about its sun-dappled waters seemed to fill a void he was feeling, so it is meaningful that he asked for water, a lot of water.
Rather interestingly pointing in one direction towards kind of prestige cinema, and the other pointing forwards, of course.
È troppo forte questo vento. Ma no, ma dammi retta, guarda, prova ancora, guarda, anzi, guarda, devo alzare ancora.
The Lady of the Lake. La donna del lago.
Okay, guys, the next one, it's going to be a little controversial. I've been really positive during this whole thing, except maybe the Mondo movies. But here's one from MVD Rewind, and it is Double Dragon. Yes, everybody knows Double Dragon. As a kid, I loved the video game, especially the Sega version, like the arcade Sega version. It wasn't for Nintendo and arcade before, but they released a Sega cartridge, and I played that thing 1,000 times. I had it. I beat that game so many times I could beat it in my sleep. I love it. So, okay. The movie gets released. I put it in when I was a kid. I rented it. I was like, all these monsters on the cover, all this cool stuff. And I did not care for it when I was a little kid. When I was about 25 or something, I revisited it. And I thought it was pretty fun. Rewatching it again, I'm going to say this now. Yeah, it's a terrible Double Dragon movie. But as for a sci-fi, bizarre, just kind of goofy, fun movie, it's a blast. It stars Mark Dacascos and the other guy, Scott Wolf, as Billy and Jimmy Lee, the Double Dragon. It takes place in a post-apocalyptic, futuristic world where L.A., what do they call it, New Angeles instead of Los Angeles, where earthquakes have kind of devastated the landscape, and the gangs rule the night, and the cops are, kind of enforcing throughout the day. That sounds very much like RoboCop. This movie's kind of like RoboCop meets The Warriors, meets all sorts of science fiction nonsense. It's a lot of fun. There's some familiar faces in here. The lead baddie is played by Robert Patrick. He's chewing the scenery. He's having a blast. I enjoy seeing him. You guys will also recognize genre favorite Michael Berryman in a small but fun role. And that's all I can really say about it. And the guy who plays a Bobo is in, I mean, at least the cast, I'm saying. All I can say about the cast. The guy who plays a Bobo is in a bunch of stuff. He's been in a million stuntman movies. I mean, movies where he plays a stuntman, actor kind of guy. Right when you see him, you're like, he's getting beat up. He's in The Mask. He's in Under Siege 2. You know who he is. But regardless, Double Dragon is a blast. It's very corny, very cheesy. There's these one-liners, and it kind of missed its mark because it really aimed at younger kids, but it was PG-13, so it should have been aimed more. It's not particularly violent or anything. There's lots of fighting, but it's goofy, zany, over the top. It just kind of is in a place where you don't really know who to advertise it to, and they talk about that. There's actually like an hour and a half new documentary. It has interviews with a lot of the writers and like the producers and the lead actors in it, besides Robert Patrick, but there is some old vintage stuff with him on there, archival stuff. But that hour and like 20-30 minute documentary is really great and has some very informative interviews. The writers are talking about it like, we wish it was better, we know, but it's kind of fun. And that's exactly, it's not like gonna win any Academy Awards, but if you want to just shut your brain off and watch some fun action, I mean, who had that? I mean, once you think about it, like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that, those movies weren't particularly great either, right? I mean, but some of them are fun, some of them are silly. The problem with those movies is all of them kind of fail at being the video game, maybe besides the exception of Mortal Kombat. They just kind of fail at what they're supposed to be. But outside of that, if you take a look out and say, just for a stupid, video game like fighting movie adaptation, it's not that bad. Come on, what do you guys expect? And they're all kind of entertaining in their own way, and I think Double Dragon's one of the better ones of the bunch. It's fun, it's silly. There's some outdated special effects, of course, but watching Robert Patrick play kind of a villain, this movie also feels like very similar to Guyver, because he's after these the necklace that you put them together and they have special powers. So it feels like this is such a 90s movie to a T. And if you grew up at that time, I was born in 86, so when this came out I was pretty I probably was like 7, 8. So it was perfect for that time, and it's kind of like a embedded style of filmmaking that I know is not particularly great, or I meant storytelling or whatever it is. That's not particularly great, but I have a soft spot for it. I thought it looked pretty good. I thought it sounded good. It's a nice release, and I'm surprised they did the deluxe version of Double Dragon, and I think that, it kind of didn't destroy Imperial Pictures at some point, kind of like make them go bankrupt. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's kind of treated unfairly. I don't know what people really expect when they put something like this in, but there's lots of gangs and weird fighting, and they incorporate some monsters in here, which is cool, and most of the stuff is all practical. The villain, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. It's a Japanese name, but he's not actually Japanese. He just kind of stole the name. Is jumping into bodies and stuff because he has half the power medallion. So there's fun things like that. They try to do some nice sci-fi elements, but really it feels more like a kiddie version of the Warriors, but it has these aspects of like RoboCop in there with the futuristic cops wanting to go on strike deal. But it's fun. Alyssa Milano is also in it, so yeah, check it out. Give it another chance. I mean, maybe if you hate it or you're a certain age, you're definitely not going to be able to get into it. But myself, I enjoy it every time I see it. It's just, ever since I was a kid, I didn't like it, but it's weird. It's like I reverted back. But it's fun, and this is a good release of Double Dragon. Okay, the next one is a Patreon pick from the 22 Shots guys. They picked, it was Jeremy who picked this one. He picked Hunger. This is a Fangoria Fight Fest one. And I've had this. I believe it is this one an English film? No, it's got to be an American one. I can't remember, which is terrible because this is one of the first ones I watched for this week. But this one was made in 2008, and it's definitely kind of inspired by that Saw-style deal. 5 people wake up in this kind of cave hole. This underground like cave deal, and they don't really know why they're there or how they got there. And at first it's really dark, and I was like, I hope this movie's not shot like this the whole time because I really can't see what's going on. But over time some lights come on and they start to discuss how they got there, and you start to realize why they're there. I don't want to necessarily spoil it, but they're all there for some sort of crazy experiment. They pretty much establish who they are right off the bat, the characters. There's an asshole guy who is just so almost a little too over the top to the point where you're like, I think I would have killed him within a day because I don't trust him. And although they don't know they're in a movie, but you know exactly what's going to happen, exactly what he's going to do. So we have that. We have, like I said, the kind of quiet guy who you just know is going to go crazy. You know he's going to lose his mind. And we have the older guy who kind of is good-natured, and the main woman, and another woman who, doesn't seem exactly on the level. The main woman obviously is like the heroine type, and you know where it's going. But it kind of unfolds all the stories of the people, including the person who's holding the experiment. And we learn who they are. It's jumping back and forth. And as it goes on, we learn more and more about everyone in the movie. It's not particularly horrible at all. It's not amazing in any ways. But they try to establish these characters as best as they can. And use the small, little, limited space and limited set as best they can. And I think they do a fairly good job with it. It has some graphic, disturbing, kind of gross out moments. And there is times when you think, man, just kill that guy now. You know where it's going, and you just want him out of the picture. But there's some, obvious twists and turns. I don't want to say obvious, but there's some, twist here and there. I like the ending. I thought it was a little bit more fulfilling than a lot of these movies would have been. And I don't think it's a particularly such a good movie that by making the ending happen like that some people who wanted the, downbeat ending would be upset by, because it's just not something that is particularly amazing or anything, but it's also kind of under talked about and kind of not appreciated at all. I don't hate it. I think it was pretty good, right down the middle, a little bit better than expected, a little bit better than what the reviews would suggest, but it's decent. And there's kind of a weird scene involving some kids at a makeout point, which was a little kind of shoehorned in, but also had a nice element of adding some music in there that I thought was decent. But regardless, it's worth checking out if you like these kind of torture movies. It's not a trap movie. It's not a gore fest. It is a little disturbing, and it has some gross out moments, but that's Hunger from 2008. I think it's 2008.
You are gonna die down here.
Monsters are savages.
I know what you want.
Okay, the next one here is a Patreon pick by Chris Rivers, and this is Interview with the Assassin. He tends to pick a lot of these movies that are kind of like not found footage, kind of serial killer style movies or documentaries or fake documentaries, but Interview with an Assassin. I'm going to be honest, this movie blew me away. It's a great story. It hooks you right away. This out of work cameraman, it's all kind of like by his point of view. He's making a documentary about an out of work cameraman, gets a message from one of his neighbors that says, hey, I want to, there's a crime that I want to admit to. Can you come over and film me? And it's played by Raymond Barry, the neighbor. And at first I didn't recognize him. He's one of these character actors that you've seen in a million things, but you never register who he is until you actually look him up and you're like, oh my God, he's in everything. And I know who he is. He's just a familiar face, kind of playing like political heavies or police officers or military guys. And he's good at that. So this guy turns in one of the best performances I've seen in a very long time. He has so much charisma in that kind of sociopath way. But we have this guy, and he admits to being the second shooter in the JFK assassination, the one on the grassy knoll. So they go down this rabbit hole of he takes him to the location where JFK was assassinated. He goes and buys him a gun that kind of resembles the gun he had. He takes him to his old military buddies, and he tells them how he got here and why he did the assassination. It was his commanding officer. And as we go more and more into this story, you're more intrigued. Right off the bat, you're suckered in by this guy's charisma and as how he answers his questions. He's like, did you feel bad? Not really. You know, just he's such a good portrayal of a crazy person or somebody who just does not care. But as you go on, you know, there's a little bit more that meets the eye. You start to think that the government's actually after them at points, or maybe this guy's crazy. And you never really know the truth. You know, some of his friends and some of the people that he says he was associated with, they just don't line up, and they say things that don't really add up, but you can't really prove it. They visit one of his ex-wife, and her interview is great. And this whole movie, the acting seems so natural. It's kind of actually amazing. The lead guy, too, behind the camera, he's also tremendous. Got to give him props for just seeing me coming off so natural and so, you know, like I said, so realistic. There's a point where he goes and visits one of his old army buddies, and the guy says he's dying. Raymond Barry, the actor, he says he's dying, and that's why he wants to do this and like blow the lid off all this stuff. And he's talking to his buddy, and he says, "You want a beer?" And he says, "I can't. Doesn't mix well with the medicine." He says, "What you got?" "Cancer." And he says, "Yeah, it's going around." It's just so blunt, like he doesn't, they just don't want to come close to any kind of emotions in there. But regardless, it's vastly entertaining. And you kind of start to learn a little bit more about this guy, that either he's not who he says he is, or that there's something else going on entirely, or they're both. Is there a conspiracy theory after this guy? Is he crazy? And that's the fun about the movie. And you know, it's not just about the JFK assassination. It's also about being careful what you believe and getting involved in these kind of stories. But there's some scary moments, some intense moments, and a great performance by the Raymond Barry and the other guy. They both do great. I can't think of his name, but the other guy pops up in Con Air. You'd recognize him in Con Air. He has a bit part in there where he meets his end by Cyrus the Virus in Carson City, I think, Nevada, in Con Air. But regardless, this was it's a pleasant surprise. And Chris Rivers also gave me the last horror film, I believe. Not the one with Joe Spinell, but the other one that I've seen years ago, the British horror film. And I had seen that one, and it fits in that kind of vein. It makes a great double feature, these two. If you like the found footage, kind of serial killer, crazy person kind of look. They're both, I like that kind of stuff. I always have. And this one I was really, really pleasantly surprised with it.
I was in Dallas, November 22nd, 1963. That mean anything to you?
What is it, the day Kennedy was shot?
There you go.
You know something about it?
I do. That's John Seymour.
What you fellas want with a cop?
Come out and talk.
They think they can shut me up by attacking my family.
Never told anyone this before. No one knows. Nobody.
Just making sure no one's following us.
You're lying.
You want proof? I can give you proof.
That is.
This man is sick.
He's been in a mental institution.
I was a second gunman. Behind the stockade fence on what they call the grassy knoll, I fired one shot from there.
Were you nervous?
Not really. I know I could do it. I wanted to do it.
You shot President Kennedy.
In the head, I killed him.
Okay, the next one was from Matt Brown, and he picked this one for me. I do not have a copy. I rented it on Vudu, and it is Jodorowsky's Dune. I love Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune movies. I love like El Topo and The Holy Mountain and Santa Sangre, and even what was the one, Endless Poetry. They've all been great movies. They've all been amazing experiences. And Alejandro Jodorowsky is one of these one-of-a-kind people. He's a genius, and he's a little bit crazy, and that's the perfect combination for making art. And his art, and like I said about the director, he's one of these guys that all he cares about is the movie. He doesn't care about anything else except making the movie. So, like, he is one of those people that if you have Herschel Gordon Lewis on one end of the spectrum, just there to make money, doesn't give a shit, will do it as fast as he can, Alejandro Jodorowsky's on this end. And he's one of these guys that cares about the art, cares about the film, cares about nothing. He won't suffer. He will not sacrifice anything. He wants to make that. And that's what I love about him. This movie is a documentary about the failed film that Jodorowsky almost made in 1974, Dune. He almost adapted Frank Herbert's Dune. But yes, it didn't happen. But this is one of these movies that they say, they have all these people interviewed, that inspired, without this Dune, without this giant book he made for the movie, like storyboards and all this elaborate stuff in there that all these people had seen, and he got all these people together like Dan O'Bannon and H. Geiger, then no movies would have actually probably happened like they did. Star Wars wouldn't be the same possibly. Alien maybe never been made. All these movies, Terminator, this stuff, the science fiction genre was forever changed by Jodorowsky's Dune, or a movie that was never made, which is kind of amazing to think, to be honest. It has interviews with Jodorowsky himself, his son, the person who made drew the storyboards, all sorts of people in here, the producer. It's very interesting stuff. I like that. It was interesting to see all these different people talk about it. Has an interview with Devin Faraci, who is, a big film critic, and he talks about how this movie, what does he say? The movie that affected the most movies that was never made. And it really seems that way, and it's such an interesting movie. It's always very entertaining, and it's funny because I'm getting older, so I love watching movies, documentaries about movies, sometimes more than movies themselves. But this is great stuff. It's vastly entertaining. And at the end, Jodorowsky gives this wonderful speech. The guy's like 86 years old in this. And he gives this wonderful speech. He's like, why don't we have ambition? Why don't we have ambition? And it's just like, I was like, it felt like he's like one of these guys that has this charisma that feels like he's a cult leader. And when he talks, he's talking directly to you. Like, move over, Charles Manson. Where's Jodorowsky's cult? It just feels like he can convince anybody to do anything, which is funny to me. But I love the guy's movies. I love this documentary. I love listening to him talk. He's such an interesting guy, speaking like 2 or 3 languages maybe in here. I know he speaks English and French. But he's just lived an interesting life and always makes interesting movies. And I have to say that this was a very interesting documentary, and I would like to watch it again and revisit. I'll probably buy it when I get some extra money or I come across it cheap. But it's well worth your time, especially if you're interested in science fiction movies in general, and the idea that he had all these people that he had pegged to be in it, like David Carradine and Salvador Dali, and all sorts of stuff as well. Uday Khair, tons of people, but highly recommended. It has some good interviews in here with some people that you wouldn't expect maybe that would talk, but you can see Jodorowsky talking like, hey, do this for me, and they're like, okay, how can I can't say no to Jodorowsky. But this movie was supposed to have Pink Floyd doing the soundtracks, and all different, every race or planet would have different soundtracks. Just a ridiculous, the most ambitious science fiction movie that inspired the most science fiction movies that was never made. But Jodorowsky's Dune, well worth checking out.
Mi ambición fue tremenda. I wanted to make something sacred, una película que diera las alucinaciones de LSD. Si tomara LSD to change the young mind of all the world. Michel Seydoux said to me, I want to make a new picture with you. What do you want to do? I say, Dune. And he said, yes.
C'était le plus beau livre de science-fiction, c'est la Bible de la science-fiction, un succès d'édition mondiale.
I didn't read Dune, but I have a friend who said it was fantastic. 3,000 drawings. I shoot the picture, point of view, movement of the camera, dialogue.
Designing the spaceships, the clothes, the whole look of his world.
The castle. Open the mouth, the spaceship came in the tongue.
His vision was so huge, so beyond what anybody else was doing at that time. Things that George Lucas wasn't even going to try with Star Wars. It's enormous.
Part of Holler's genius was finding the right people.
David Carradine, Mick Jagger. Dali as the Mad Emperor of the Galaxy.
Dali said, can I have a burning giraffe? All right, we'll have burning giraffe.
Orson Welles. Yeah, I say, I don't want to do it. I say, if you do the picture, I will hire the chef of the restaurant and you will eat as here every day. And I say, I do it. Giger nunca había hecho películas. I say to Giger, I need you as you are.
Alejandro completely motivated you. It was wonderful.
We will change the world.
People did not do this film because they were afraid of his imagination.
This is a movie that has its fingerprints all over so many other movies. Blade Runner, William Gibson, Matrix.
Giger, he make the monster of Alien. And Hollywood start to use my group.
It always leads back to Jodorowsky.
Could be fantastic, no?
Okay, the next Patreon pick is from Cyanide Breath Mints, and it is Last Ride, starring Hugo Weaving. This one was made in, I believe, 2009, and you know how I always say, Hugo Weaving is a guy that always stars in these big blockbuster movies, and I'm like, why? Like, I never caught his thing, so he gave me one previously that had Hugo Weaving that was a pretty interesting movie. And this one, again, is a pretty interesting movie. Last Ride follows, it's an Australian flick, follows Hugo Weaving and his son. And Hugo Weaving's this loser kind of drifter that's taking his son place to place. He's like a 9-10-year-old kid. And you hate Hugo Weaving so bad in this movie in the very beginning. You realize he's just such an abusive loser that he doesn't care. Like, he leaves his son alone and he goes to the bar and gets drinks. And pretty soon you find out that they're running from something. He's running from something and you don't 100% know what happened. But it jumps back in flashbacks and you learn what happened, why it happened, and some more about the character. And their relationship is strengthened because of it, I think. You think more of Hugo Weaving because it's not what he did, it's why he did it, and that kind of changes things. It's definitely kind of like a coming-of-age story with the young man. And he's just, you see all the things that Hugo Weaving does in a criminal activity that just directly affect his son, and it angers you, it upsets you in certain ways. But this is a on-the-road movie. They're constantly moving, constantly running across some beautiful landscapes and some amazing set pieces, especially the salt flats, yeah. And they drive across it. That's a great scene. There's a really good scene where some, what did they call those guys? Woods Rangers, Forest Rangers stop him when he's in the woods and they have this conversation with the kid and everything like that. That's a really good moment. There's good performance by the two Rangers. I really liked seeing that. And just all around, it's driven by these two lead performances of Hugo Weaving and the guy who plays his kid, the young kid who plays his kid. I don't know his name. He went on to do a couple more things like Boys and Trees, I think. As one's called. I looked it up and I heard some buzz about that one a while back. But it's two great performances and a kind of a character study. And it's kind of sad at the end. And the whole movie I'm sitting here hating Hugo Weaving. But by the end of the movie I kind of realized, and I guess it kind of portrays what the kid does. No matter what, you love your parents to a certain extent. No matter how awful they are, you always have those feelings for your parents. And I guess they kind of somehow portrayed that in the movie, that at the end of the movie, no matter how angry I was at Hugo Weaving throughout the entire movie, I kind of liked him at the end. And I felt sorry. I had sympathy, I guess I'll say. Maybe because I'm a human, maybe because the movie did something right. Maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. But it's a good movie. I don't know if this one has much replay value. It's just a solid movie, and it has Hugo Weaving's acting on display here. And he plays a despicable character, but somehow almost too realistic, to be honest, to ever have that good charisma that you enjoy. Like even somebody like Tom Tolles in Henry, he's despicable, but he has a buffoonery to him when you see the movie more that makes you laugh. Hugo Weaving here is just despicable. but somehow at the end of the movie, you feel bad for him. And I don't know what that says 100%, but it's definitely a movie worth checking out for sure. I watched it on Vudu in HD. I don't think there's a Blu-ray around, but there is a DVD that's pretty easily to find. So, The Last Ride.
This bloke went to a fancy dress party with a woman on his shoulders. People at the party said, well, what have you come as? And he says, oh, I've come as a tortoise. And they said, why have you got a woman on your shoulders? And he said, oh, that's Michelle. Michelle, mate, my shell, get him?
So, what's going on this time?
Thought I'd show Chuck a bit of the country.
He needs school and a good home.
Are you Dad's girlfriend again?
No.
He really didn't mean to hit you.
Does he hit you?
You won't be telling anyone we've been here, eh?
Who'll be asking?
We're mongrels, us. They're whatever we want to be. Just squeeze the trigger. Reckon we could live out here? Change our names. They'll never find us.
How come my mum left me?
Some women just aren't meant to be mothers, I suppose.
Sheep don't leave their lambs.
Shark! I'm your dad! Shark!
What's gonna happen to us?
Yeah, we'll be fine.
But what if we're not?
Okay, the last Patreon pick. I know this is a really Patreon pick heavy one. I just was swamped. But the last Patreon pick is Hara-Kiri from Jason Willard picked this one. This is a Takashi Miike film. He always picks the Japanese films and the samurai kind of style stuff. But this one was made in 2011. It is a remake. I never saw the original. But Hara-Kiri or Akira or whatever you say it, I'm going to stop saying it because I don't know what I'm doing. This shares a lot of similarities to Miike's 13 Assassins, which was also a remake. It has some of the same cast. It looks from the same era, same time period. A lot of the same sets look very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if these reused a lot of the same stuff here. But this one, it opens up with a man coming to an old... This takes place at the time of peace, so samurais are kind of displaced. You need to know a little bit about Japanese culture. This movie will explain it, though, but for me to run down, there's a lot of ronins going around who are samurais who don't have a home anymore, don't have anything to protect, so they're displaced samurais that end up falling into poverty. So what is happening in this time and age, they'll go to these lords and they'll say, I want to commit Hara-Kiri in front of you, to kind of get some of my honor back, because there's just a time of peace. I no longer can die how a samurai is supposed to die in battle. So he ends up going to this lord and telling him he wants to kill himself. But what's been happening is people are doing suicide bluffs where they go to the lord and say they want to kill themselves, and the lord it puts them in an awkward position where they say, why don't you not do that? Here's a job, or here's some money, please go. So this is what happens. The one guy shows up and he decides that he wants to kill himself, and the lord of this is actually the lead in 13 Assassins. I love the actor. He's really good. And what happens is he says, you know what? Somebody came here months ago. Did you know this guy? Yada, yada, yada. And it goes to a backstory. And it tells a story about this young man who did a suicide bluff and something horribly tragic happened. And it was pretty gratuitous and pretty horrible what happened to him. And he says, do you still want to do it? And he says, yes. And then he makes one last request. And that opens this whole can of worms where it goes back and you realize that he's somebody else and he has a flashback, and it tells the whole story of his life and everybody that was involved with it, some of which have already been in the movie previously, and you understand what exactly is going on. And this movie, what it's really good at, this besides just being well made, well acted, well shot, great locations, great set pieces, great wardrobe, all that's there. It's a movie that kind of attacks the samurai culture, attacks this bullshit honor, and this character makes a mockery out of everything that is the samurai way, that is the lack of human compassion in that samurai way. And it's really beautiful in a lot of ways, and it has a good action piece at the end, and it's very emotional, and it's a very dark, disturbing movie. At one point in this movie, there's this cat, and it has moved to follow one of the people to work every day. And they're wondering why it doesn't come back home. It just likes to, kind of live at the workplace. But one morning it comes back and they find it dead in front of them. It's just dead sitting there. And then they show the cat later on, it came home to die. And it's just that depressing idea. And they show the cat later on, just a shot of it laying there. And that's kind of this weird, bad omen for this family. And it's just really strange. And there's other aspects with the cat too, like the Lord has a white cat. It almost looks the same. A little bit things with cats there, but it's just an excellent emotional movie, and the ending packs a punch. And it in a way he is a winner because the way he died is the only true way a samurai should. But it also is just a mockery of all these people that claim to follow this facade of honor, and they're just full of shit. It's all full of shit. And their Shogun statue, or like the Shogun outfit that's sitting there at the very end, it kind of makes a little joke about how full of shit the people are too. Even the Lord lies to a certain extent. Doesn't say anything that happened, but well-made movie, really good. And this isn't going to be a movie for people that don't like a lot of dialogue or don't like reveals or can't pay attention. If you can't pay attention, if you don't like dialogue, if you don't like Japanese films, then steer clear. But if you like that kind of stuff, which I do, I'm not as familiar as I'd like to be, but I really enjoyed this one, and all the ones I have seen I have enjoyed. But yeah, definitely check this one out. It is very cool, very good, and very heartfelt, emotional movie. Thank you, Jason Lord. Good stuff.
当家で切腹をなさりたいと承ったが、誠にご立派なお心持ち感服いたす。知事は求めと申す老子が当家を訪ねてまいった。そこ元と同じ要件でな。存じませぬな。お話もそうか。今流行りの狂言切腹に相違ござります。狂言切腹。流行り病のように風靡し、諸侯の方々も手を焼いておりました。こうなると浅ましいもので、狂言切腹は姑息な貧乏老子たちの間ではこのようなもので申し上げたき儀がござる。そう。何しに参られた。こちらに参何も手前が存じよりのもの。父上。
美穂殿は命を懸けてお守りしたいお方です。夫が妻や子のために働くのは当然であろう。
おかしなことを申される。私も血の通うた人間であろう。人には皆それぞれくだらん、実にくだらん。切り捨てい。一日だけどうかお願いでござる。ましてや我らは割り符のごとく二人で一つ。武士に二言はござらぬ。
Okay, we're going to hop into the VHS Voyage, and this one was made in, I believe, 1983, and it is Surf 2. You know what? There's no Surf 1, so don't worry, guys. You're like, I haven't seen the first one. There's two of these movies. There's that corny joke. Surf 2, 1983. Is it a parody? Is it an off-the-wall comedy? Is it a broad, weird comedy? I don't know what the hell this movie is, but I love it. It's so weird. It's so stupid. It's so goofy, and it has some familiar faces in here that everybody would recognize. Eddie Deason, Tom Villard from Popcorn, and, of course, Eric Stoltz is in this movie. There's some other people in here I'm sure I'm just forgetting right off the top of my head, but this movie is nonsense. Okay. I don't even know how to go about this, but Eddie Deason lives in this underwater kind of lab that he's created, and he is manufacturing this stuff called Buzz with like 3Z Cola, and he's selling it to these two half-wit guys that want to go in a business that don't care, and they're selling it to kids. This Buzz Cola has a chemical. It's basically motor oil and some weird chemical that turns surfers into zombies. Eddie Deason hates the surfers because they picked on him in school and he wants to get revenge. He also took the ugliest girl that he was dating and turned her into a hottie so she can infiltrate the surfers and learn things and kind of get people to come to the lab and drink the Buzz Cola. That's the plot of the movie. It's absolutely absurd. People are disappearing. They're coming back as these weird punk rock zombies that are crazy, and they don't eat people, but they fight and they can't die, and they're absurd, and they have a taste for weird things. The movie is completely over the top. Like the chief of police is always saying really dumb things and always constantly looking at a book to say things. There's some really funny moments with that when he has to read something. You guys come out with your arms up, and he's like, that sounded like John Wayne. He's all impressed with himself. It is completely perverted, completely outdated, and something that people would be like, that's kind of rapey, very rapey. There's lots of nudity, which this movie's so stupid that you wouldn't think there'd be any nudity. You'd think it'd be like a PG movie because it's that goofy. But there's gratuitous, sleazy stuff in here. There's a pair of these fat, overweight guys that I guess are supposed to be brothers. Fat, overweight guys. There I go again. Double, you know. You only need one, buddy. But these the really fat guys, again, I can't help but double it, that are just kind of gross perverts that are constantly staring at women's boobs, like, getting in their face and eating gross things all the time. The back of it, their just jokes are terrible and outdated, but for some reason they're so stupid they make me laugh. And they're mostly portrayed in the scene where the surfers have to go to a public beach because the main beach is closed, the surfing beach. But yeah, like I said, Eric Stoltz is like one of the main stars in this movie. Goofy movie, makes you laugh, never unentertaining. But the best character in the movie is the character of Big Head. He is this like oaf of a guy, and he just runs through everything. He makes one of the cars into a convertible. He's just unstoppable. And the highlight of this movie literally is he has an eating competition with one of the, I guess, Buzz Cola zombies, and it's trying to get him to drink the cola at the end. And what they're doing is they're eating the grossest stuff they possibly can, and it's just washed like on shore like sea junk, like sea cucumber and seaweed and starfish and just puke-inducing sea garbage. Cleavon Lidl is in this movie as well. But so they're eating it and they're like taking bites of it and going back and forth, and he's doing it with Tom Villard, and then they bring out a Buzz Cola, and Big Head's like, oh, and that's just like, it's an absolutely ridiculous movie. You know what? The underwater sea lab kind of resembles the thing from They Bite, which I reviewed a while ago. And I had seen this movie, Surf 2, a long time ago. I just had forgot how ridiculous it was. But I'd love to see this hit Blu-ray. It is so weird and so goofy and so sleazy and stupid that it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this one. I just don't think that there's a... Skip Blood Beach. Go to Surf 2 if you want a fun beach movie that's not on DVD or Blu-ray. But Surf 2, man, this movie is absurd. It's silly. And it looked like it had some sort of budget because there's lots of music in here. I was probably holding it up, the music rights. But very fun, very stupid, very weird. Just lots of good stuff going on.
And now for a more serious approach to one of the major issues of today. It's the end of the trilogy, Surf 2.
All right, the way I see it, either we've got several hundred maniacs running loose, or we've got a serious problem.
Aren't you worried about those two guys that got mutilated out there today?
No, we'll surf around them.
All right, we know you're in there, so home on out.
No, Chief. Talk about having it all. He was short, ugly, nearsighted, and carried a slide rule.
For Christ's sake, don't stop innocent kids from drinking cola and surfing. It's the American way.
So come on out with your
Is that fans?
No, it's hands.
Right, okay.
So come on out with your hands up, or we're coming in after you.
Surf 2 takes off where Airplane crashed, as the surf wars continue to ravage the minds and bodies of innocent youths in their fight for a better tomorrow.
Okay, the pick a movie was actually picked by 80s film fan, and he did give me something from the 80s. The Stay Awake. Some people listed as 87, 88, 89. I don't know where it's from, but this is a British film. And like I said before, I know the 80s film fans that a lot of people don't like it, but I really think it's good and underappreciated and want you to give it a spin. I'm sorry, man. This is bad. For me, at least. It's obviously opinion. It's subjective. It's not objective. Like, objectively bad. It's subjectively. I don't care for this movie at all. It's a short movie. It's 85 minutes long. It's British. Or it's actually South African, sorry. Which is very similar to British. And it's gonna stay term for what my term on British movies. When a British movie is boring and dull, there's nothing duller than a bad British movie. I mean, I like British movies. When they're good, I love them. But a dull British movie is super dull. And the same thing goes for South African. This is a South African film about these group of girls, 8 girls and their coach that are going to do an all-nighter, and they're doing it for some charity reason. I don't know why. It's never really explained very well. There's an old guy, security guard in there, and at the very beginning, a man was put to death, some strange overacting guy, and for some reason or the other, I don't know if this school was... I was having a hard time paying attention. This took a couple sittings. I don't understand if he somehow managed to make it into this school somehow, or the prison was turned into a school. I don't know, but his weird spirit is here, and he can kind of possess things or turn into things. I don't know. There's this weird creature, and it seems like it might be part rat. I don't know. I don't know how it happened, but let me tell you this. The movie's 85 minutes long. And there's a gratuitous shower scene, like as in a film, like an 80s movie where there'd be nudity. They actually take the time to film a gratuitous shower scene and show the girl showering and everything going down. You're like, oh, it's going to be your typical TNA scene. No TNA. Why do the gratuitous shower scene without the nudity? Why? Was it cut out? Did the person just say, I don't want to do this anymore? And you said, okay, forget it? I don't know. But it takes 40 minutes for one character to die. So for 40 minutes, you're watching these girls who are very hard to distinguish from each other. There's a bitchy one, and there's one that doesn't like to exercise. That's all I remember out of 8. I mean, the rest are varying degrees of bitchy and normal, and it's just about it. I don't know. And then, so they're playing volleyball, then they're watching a bad movie, and then that's pretty much for 40 minutes, and then one gets killed. The monster itself, the bodysuit on it looks really cool. I enjoyed it. It shoots tentacles and grabs people. That stuff's fun. I wish it was in it more. The head looks like something from Horror at Party Beach, though. It's kind of cheap, but better than Horror at Party Beach, but definitely not like 30 years later better. You know what I mean? Like, it obviously should have been better than that. But I'm not going to complain about that kind of stuff. I don't mind if the head looks kind of cheesy. I enjoy it. But the monster is kind of fun. The ending is kind of absurd. I don't even remember. Like, I blanked out a lot of this movie because it's, like I said, it's only 85 minutes, but it felt like an hour and 40. It's just dull and boring, and the pacing. It's really, you know what? If this movie was like had some added like violence or added scenes in here that were better and they cut out some of the stuff, it would be much better of a movie. But its pacing's off. It takes 40 minutes to kill a character, and then at one point they kill like 4 characters back to back, and then they're possessed. I don't know. I don't understand the powers of the creature. I don't understand what the creature is. I don't understand how he's controlling the creature or what's exactly going on. Do I need to see it again? Probably. Maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention. Will I see it again? No. Because I can't do it again. I just can't. It's just not something I particularly like. It was also a very dark film, so it's hard to see some of the special effects that are going on. Dug the tentacles, dug the eye glowing creature, and there is I think I do remember a couple decent deaths in here, but it is on Amazon. You can rent it for a couple bucks, or you can rent it for $1 or buy it for $3. I bought it for $3. Maybe if it looked a little better, it would be easier to see what's going on, and it would add its a little bit. It takes place in like this big school kind of institute, so it's got a decent location. It's just a little boring and a little inept and just a little dull, and it's poorly edited too. There's some characters in here, like, when you're supposed to keep the movie flowing, and I think it's edited to pad the runtime. Like, you're like, oh, there's supposed to be like no pauses in dialogue, and I'm not saying that the actresses couldn't say it fast enough. It's literally a cut. Like, I'm talking, and then it will cut to somebody else, and there'll be like a second pause before they talk. And it's just like, they don't talk like that. And it's just like, who edited this? This is even edited like slow and boring and dull. The pacing's awful. Worst pacing ever. Okay, I'm exaggerating. Bad pacing. Sorry, 80s film fan. I don't go into movies to hate them, but this was not for me. And I love creature features.
way? I don't think so. Now remember, when it appears, no matter what it looks like, don't panic. Try and hit it with your javelin.
But I've never thrown one of these things before.
Then I suggest you learn very quickly.
What's that awful smell?
And that sound!
I think we're about to find out very soon. And remember, when I say so, run straight to the school chapel and stay there until the sun comes up. Don't panic. When I say now, then throw your javelins with all your might. Try for the eyes.
Oh, shit.
Okay, get ready. And now! Now run!
No power is as great as that of the darkness.
Okay, we're gonna do the pick a movie. Let's see what we got. If I can get this thing open. Who we got? Who do I got? I know I got somebody. Viper Rose, 1978. There we go. And let me know what you want me to check out on the pick a movie. Now let's hop into the questions, if I can pull this thing up. There we go. Okay, the questions. Nick Mua, if you were at school where weird things were happening, would you notice right away, do you think? I don't know. It depends how old I was. It depends how much I cared. Right now, I probably would, because let's just take my work environment. Like, if somebody doesn't show up for 2 days, everybody, like, gossips and talks crap. So, I mean, like, it's funny that people say that, like, it's like that rumor that's like, only, you know, little girls gossip. It's like, that's so nonsense. Everybody gossips. That's just a bad stereotype. Everybody gossips because they're bored at work or whatever. Everybody does it. Which classic horror movie would you like to reimagine? Would I like to reimagine? I would pick something that kind of was a failed first time, but I like Neon Maniacs. I don't know if it's classic, but I wouldn't do a classic because it's classic for a reason. No need to touch it. But Neon Maniacs, that could use a reimagining. Do you feel that a horror movie loses impact if it features actors who made their career in horror? Not necessarily, but I do think a low-budget movie can lose, not impact, but I think people will lose interest big time. If you see like an independent movie and it has a list of actors that kind of, or actresses that kind of have a reputation for just phoning it in or being in absolutely everything, like the convention circuit, some of them always turn in a good performance no matter what, but some of them, they're phoning it in. And sometimes you can't blame them. They get a script that says you're playing a guy who eats a hot dog in 30 seconds, and you say, God! It's like, okay, yeah, this is going to be fun. Some people would take that seriously, but I'm saying that sometimes you see a list of actors and actresses that have just been in 100 of these movies, and it's the director's intent or producer's intent to get as many of these people as they can so they can make it in some video store or something. They don't care about the filmmaking. They don't care about anything except a name and making some money, and that can hurt a movie big time, and especially if it feels like that. I don't know if it loses impact. I guess if you mean like if you're watching a movie and like a big horror actor comes out and it might lose surprises, it could lose impact too, or it could help it. It could help it. Like you had Vincent Price just in a 30-second cameo or something, that helped your movie. Sometimes. Back in the day. It felt like those cameos were just a little bit more impactful than they are now. Because, I don't want to say this, but when you get a cameo from somebody like Vincent Price, it's Vincent fucking Price. It's not... I was an extra in some obscure horror movie from the 70s or something for 10 seconds. It's like, oh, we got a cameo from guy who was in background cop in Breeders. It's like, okay. I don't want to talk shit because, everybody's got to make a living and, some people turn in 100% every time. Even if that's their career, what they're doing. Tim Hayes, surprised you would be interested in doing a review of Horror Express since like Night of the Living Dead or House on Haunted Hill. It's one of the films that's been out of public domain DVD labels. You ever get bored or sick of a movie when something like that happens? But I love the movie, and I just don't watch the public domain movies in general. I don't really watch the public domain releases because they're always crappy. But how could anyone ever get tired of Night of the Living Dead? Those movies are great in their own way, and sometimes they find an audience because of it. Unfortunately, Horror Express really never got appreciation because it wasn't really, when Severin released a Blu-ray, I was like, oh my god, this movie's amazing. But I never watched it because I knew the crappy editions were out there. So I do lose interest a lot of times on them. But when something like that gets released on a remastered edition, I want to watch it because I know it's going to look like it's supposed to. It's not going to look like they filmed it at the bottom of Lake Erie with a potato, if that makes sense. See, so it's not that I'm not interested in the movie. I'm not interested in that particular print because I won't be able to see anything anyways, so it's a waste of my time. And I want to see the movie. I don't want it to be jaded or have a negative experience with the movie when it's not the movie's fault, when it's the actual DVD's fault, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. And he also asked, so Helena Marcos' butt fucking ugly. That's an understatement in that movie. Andrew DMB, Piercing, have you seen this flick yet? It's a 2018 flick by director Nicholas Pesci. Just saw it, not sure my overall thoughts, but I think the soundtrack would surprise you and also remind you of the other films. Giallos, to give you a hint. Won't say anything more. I'll just wait to see what you think of it. I have not seen it. I am interested in it. I know they covered it on Shockwaves. They had the director on, and he talked about it, or he was on one podcast, I think it was Shockwaves, talking about the interesting music choices and whatnot, and it sounded pretty cool, to be honest. And what was the other movie he did before that? My Eyes of My Mother, which I actually really liked. I thought was pretty awesome. So, yep. Okay, and we have the answers. I asked everybody what their favorite shootout was. And let me think here. Here we go. You know what? I just realized I do not have a question this week. I'm going to freestyle it. Okay. We have Front Desk Matt says, Shootout, the untouchable staircase sequence. Nod to Odessa Steps from Battleship Pokemonkin. Ennio Morricone score solidifies it. Good choice. Hudson, Fave Shootout, Saving Private Ryan, the beginning, the end, and the bits in between. Also Dirty Harry and the hot dog scene. Peter McCain, glad you enjoyed Violent Cop. I checked it out after seeing him in Battle Royale and Takeshi Castle. It got me hooked on his other films. The music is always great in his films. I recommend Sonatine next. As for my favorite shootout, I don't know why I mentioned all that, but I think the hospital scene in Hardboiled. Have you checked out Meatball Machine's sequel yet? That was a question. No, I have not. Chris Rivers, have to say that my favorite shootout is the final shootout from Young Guns. So well done and a lot of fun. Ilk Vomit, agreed. I was going to put that down. I love the shootout in the end of Young Guns. And it has that whole thing where Steve loses his mind because he thinks Chavez left him. He's out there doing it with his horse. And then he comes through and the music cue comes in and he has the horses and regulators. And he says, yeah, then he gives him the horse. Man, it's all emotional. And Charlie's whole thing in there. Barbarian and building up to being a coward, and then he loses his mind at the end. And Kenny, it's you and I, all set up earlier with the question. I think that, honestly, Young Guns was heavily inspired by a lot of Peckinpah stuff. Even if you look, I don't know, I'm going to go tirade about Young Guns and Peckinpah, but you look at Charlie Bowdry, and he got married to the Mexican girl, and Warren Oates' character, Lyle, gets married to the Mexican before in the village, the Mexican woman, before they go on their last kind of crusade, and they both end up and die in a hail of bullets. It's just kind of similar. A lot of similarities there. But Nick Mua, the guerrilla campfire fight in the original Predator comes to mind, especially Jesse Ventura's minigun, Old Painless. Damn, take about a hail of bullets. Talk about a hail of bullets. Yeah. Love the opening of Predator. And all the masculinity, one-liners and stuff. It's just so great. The M. Brown 80. Favorite shootouts, the final sequence in Rambo 2008. Die Hard scene where they shoot out all the glass for barefoot John McClane to get across. 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Both the robbery and the final shootout. And last but not least, the scene in Aliens when they first meet the Xenomorphs. This is for Close Encounters. Michael Bean's got that awesome line. I always love that line for Close Encounters. Peter Engelin, my favorite shootout. Coincidence? Catano's Sadatine shootout in the bar, which is probably the most realistic ever. Plus a shootout in the elevator is also a great one. I need to see that movie. I bought it on Vudu. It was like $8 in HD. And that was the best way to find it, except importing a Japanese Blu-ray. But there's also some great shootouts. Some Nobody Said State of Grace, The Wild Bunch, True Romance. Come on, those are some wonderful ones. Even Reservoir Dogs shootouts are really intense and awesome. Great stuff. But I guess, you know what? I'm going to come off the fly and ask the question. Since this week I asked your favorite shootout, what is your favorite fight scene? Like, is it They Live? Is it some of the stuff in Best of the Best 2? I'm throwing some obscure one. Your favorite fight scene in a movie or a couple, whatever you want to do. But I guess we're going to go into the update. Okay, let's hop into the update. The first is from Garage House Pictures. And I bought a couple of these. I haven't had a chance to watch them. But this is Weirdo The Beginning, a.k.a. I think it's just called Weirdo. This is an Andy Milligan movie. Has a nice slipcover on it. Not heard much people say that anything about this movie. I think I had maybe an old bootleg or something of it. But I'm interested in checking it out. I want to grab this one because Severin's going to put out a bunch of Andy Milligan movies. And I'm somewhat of a completist. But yeah, I heard this is actually one of his better movies. But like I said, I've not seen that many by him, so I can't really make that much of a statement on it. But yep. Then we have another one. I believe another Andy Milligan movie. And this is Monstrosity. Ooh, sorry about that. You probably heard something really loud. But this one is Monstrosity, which I also have not seen, from Garage House Pictures. I don't know why. These are all, look at the nice ABC, region free. These ones are, Andy Milligan's got a rep for being kind of like Schlockmeister, and I'm not necessarily sure how I'll feel about his movies, but I'm more interested in them just because they definitely have their time and place, and I'm just interested in horror and film in general, so yeah. And Garage House Pictures is a pretty small boutique label, so I want to support them. And we got another one from Scorpion. This is Tower of Evil. This came super fast, and there's some tits on there. Sorry about that. Probably shouldn't use the term that tits anymore, huh? I'm not sure how things are going. But regardless, got some special features on there. Not seen this one. I think it's a British horror film. Looks pretty cool. Love the cover art, but yeah. British horror. I think I have the old Blu-ray and the probably old DVD I haven't had a chance to watch. And last, The Klansman with Lee Marvin and Richard Burton from Olive Films. I've not seen this. I saw a trailer. It looked interesting. I like Lee Marvin. Yeah, want to check this one out. But maybe it's one of these movies that makes a statement about racist people. So yeah, I'm going to check it out. Back in the day, these movies seem to be groundbreaking. I've not seen it. Maybe it's a piece of crap. Not sure. But The Klansman. Thank you. Let's hop back to the video. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the update. Now I'm going to do the Patreon prize picks. There's going to be 2 prizes here. First prize will be, I got them right here. It'll be, you got to be a Patreon member. Everybody's name's in here. It'll be The Pit and Reflecting Skin. Both Blu-ray. Let me see what these are region locked. The Pit is region locked A. And I don't believe this one lists what it is on the back. But it's a UK Canada, I almost said Canada DVD, Canada DVD, Blu-ray, so it's probably region free on this one. But yeah, Reflecting Skin, underrated movie. The Pit, batshit crazy fun movie. Okay, for that, prize 1 It is Jacob Benson, my cousin. I don't know if he's going to want it, but I think he might enjoy Reflecting Skin. I'm going to draw a third name anyways, just in case one of the people doesn't want the prize. But for the second prize, it is the Kino Lorber Blu-ray of A Fistful of Dollars, classic Sergio Leone spaghetti western. And let's see. Who gets this? John Wilhelm. Okay, there you go, Wilhelm. And I'm going to draw a backup for the first prize. Backup for first prize, just in case my cousin doesn't want it, is going to be Tone Joker. Oh, and a bunch fell out. So that's the backup for first prize. I got to throw these back in here. And I'm going to do a backup for the second prize, just in case John Wilhelm already has all these, okay? Like a moron right here. Okay? Just in case John Wilhelm has Fistful of Dollars and he doesn't want it. Let me see. We have 22 shots, so that's backup for a Fistful of Dollars. Let me throw these names back in the hat, because for the next prize, they will be picked. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, you guys have a good one.